Yeah, I'm not the military guy. He is. Hey, how you all doing? I'm JC. I'm one of the co-founders with Ads. There's four of us. So I guess what everyone always asks us is why and how. So I thought I'd give my bit tonight will be a little bit of background on the fun stuff, the yin and yang of Movember. Ads is going to go through some serious program stuff, and I get to do the fun bit at the front, which is pretty cool. So way back, 2003, we're a decade in now. Crazy idea, as all crazy ideas start, with two guys in a pub on a Sunday afternoon in Australia, having some beers and talking about fashion. So two of the other founders, Luke and Trav, just talking about different fashion trends. And in Australia back then, there was a lot of different things coming in. Is that alright, or is that a bit crackly? Or is that just me? Was it good? And the moustache had vanished, and when we actually started a conversation about it, pretty much anyone in Australia under the age of 50, 60 years old didn't have a moustache anymore, which we thought was a bit of a crime because there were so many great moustaches in history. Einstein rocked out a crazy moustache, Jimi Hendrix, who was pretty cool at what he did. So many great people and powerful people throughout history had crazy moustaches, and we thought, well, we kind of can't let that vanish. So convinced 30 brave souls to come on a journey of the moustache. So in essence, we started this thing for a bit of fun, a bit of a piss take like you do in Australia, and a bit of a fashion statement to see if we could actually bring back moustache. And none of us had ever grown a moustache before. Our dads had rocked out pretty hefty moustaches in the 70s. So we gathered the guys, 1st of November, clean shave. So you got 30 days to grow. And that was our first journey. We took Polaroid photographs of ourselves beforehand, had to draw on the moustache, and the competition began. And there's nothing like a bunch of lads in a bit of competition. So the next year, we pretty much rolled through Movember, kind of worked out if we wanted to do it again. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people go, you guys going to do it, we should put it together. So 2004, we actually started the website, put the first website together, put the Movember company together, and decided to do it for men's health, because men's health in Australia pretty much was, you really didn't talk about men's health. You know, you could walk into a pub and your arm would be falling off and you wouldn't talk about it. It's like, it'll be alright, don't worry about it. Just sew it back up and give me a beer. So for us, we wanted to get people in there, and what was really inspiring for all of us is how women had done it so well. Women could talk about their issues, like, quite often openly. Breast cancer was great, you know, so we thought, well, what could we do for men? And it was actually Trav had come home in the first year in 2003, really early in the morning, and turned on the TV with a kebab and a beer after a big night out, and there was a prostate cancer ad on TV. So it's like, well, we should kind of check that out for a men's health thing. And that's when Adam did some investigative research the following year. We worked out prostate cancer was the biggest killer in men in Australia at the time, one of, and it just wasn't looked at. So we went on our merry way. We set the website up, just purely word of mouth, because Facebook hadn't really hit the street, social media wasn't around back then. Emails were probably just done at work. It wasn't really a social thing, so you still rang. I think I still had a pager back then. So to get that rolling, we had 450 guys rock up, which we thought was incredible. We thought we'd made it. We were doing hand receipts. Adam's mum was doing the hand receipts. And we donated $54,000 to prostate cancer. And when we gave it to them, it was the single largest check they'd ever received, which kind of blew us all away, because we thought it would just be a drop in the ocean. We give them this check and we've done some good. Because we're just a bunch of surfers and skaters, military boys, bands, grew up entrepreneurs, having fun, so we thought we'd give back. And that following year, after we'd given the 54,000, they were pretty surprised. So we decided to set up a meeting with Prostate Cancer Australia and said, look, we're going to do this again. So Ads called the CEO, Giles, who we given the check to, met him in a coffee shop in Melbourne, and just went, look, this is a crazy idea in Movember, this is what we do, we get guys to grow mows for 30 days, we have this big party at the end, it's a bit of a pissing contest, who's going to be man of Movember, we get sashes, it's great, we've got some beers, we're in a pub. And Andrew sort of went, we kind of can't partner with you because that's pretty much a bit loose. So Adam paid for coffee that day, which was pretty funny. So we went off that year, thought, let's roll it out anyway, because Andrew's parting words with Adam was, well, if you raise any money, we'll still take it, but we can't officially partner with you. That year we raised 1.1 million, which was really scary. I actually thought, you know, if we could make double 450 registrations, that would be cool. Make, you know, 100 grand would be awesome. So I didn't take it anywhere near that serious in that first year, because I decided to go surfing in Bali for 6 weeks while Movember started, and Luke rang me. He's like, JC, you need to come back. The website's melting. Adam's handwriting out checks, he's giving prizes. We all had full-time jobs. No one was working at Movember. We completely paid for the campaign. So that year we wrote a check for 1.1 million. We paid for the entire campaign ourselves, and gave the check. It's prostate cancer. They kind of wanted to partner with us then. So, and they'd come to our gala parties and just in suits, and there'd be guys who'd cross-dressed with bore-out outfits, and it was hilarious to watch just that different, diverse, cultured group of people, and we were actually the biggest funder and put them on the map. So that for them to try and get that, how can 4 lads with their mates make more money than our entire organisation in 4 weeks by growing moustaches? So that was a big learning curve for them, big learning curve for us. We kind of, when we made 1.1 million, it was still going into Adam's bank account. We still weren't a foundation. So when we had to hand the 1.1 million over, the tax department kind of didn't believe us that we were 4 young lads handing all this money over. So we set up a foundation. So we had the Movember Foundation, set that up. We put a board in place for corporate governance. We'd partnered with Beyond Blue as well that year with male depression, because that's a big thing in Australia and a big stigma we're doing worldwide now. So that journey sort of took off and went pretty nuts. We were all still working full time. No one was at Movember. I think we raised 8.8 million the next year. Still weren't working at Movember. Adam was kind of lying to his boss, who now was our chairman, that he was in business meetings when we were on gala parties, just about to go on stage in Sydney with 8,000 people, and he's taking a work call. And then we decided to, crazily enough, because Movember only ever goes where it's asked, take on the world, because we had 7 countries begging us to come. So we thought, why not take all 7 at once? Still not full-time jobs. I had 6 companies at the time, and I'd spent 195 days overseas for free for Movember. So it kind of wasn't making sense by that stage. But we launched 7 countries in that year, which was incredible. Had a huge takeoff. So the following year, I was actually going to start working for Movember full time, and I was going to move back to Sydney from the Gold Coast. And ads was like, we sat down, did the business plan, and realised someone needed to be in America, someone needed to be in the UK, because we just couldn't do it from laptops anymore. So we pretty much, I moved over to the UK, brought my family over, 3 kids, my wife, sold our businesses, came over, thought we'd give it a shot for 5 years and see how we could grow Movember. Ads moved to LA in situ the same year to set up Canada and the US, and now we're in 21 countries around the world. We have 1.1 million people last year grow moustaches for us or register as Mo Sisters. We've had the LBS crew, some of the boys are here tonight, who are a team of over 109, I think it was, around the first year, off memory, 19,000 pounds, which was huge. And last year, about 130-ish, 138-ish of you guys raised 20? Yeah, just over 20. So awesome effort, well done. And it's these guys that are changing the world for us. It's not us, we just work out the back. So 1.1 million people, thanks to social media last year, created, believe it or not, in 4 weeks, 2.7 billion conversations about men's health and Movember, which is just incredible. And it's those conversations for us that are changing the game. And the guys out there are our change agents. They're having that conversation, they're growing their top lip for 30 days, and they're creating noise about Movember and about men's health and our health issues that we look after. So for that, we salute the boys and we salute everyone who's been a part of Movember for us, because it's really changing the game. And we're privileged enough to sit back and see 21 different countries roll out. I look after 15 this side of the world, 12 in Europe, UK, Ireland and South Africa, and to go around and just talk to guys who have caught testicular cancer by 2 weeks because of Movember off a Facebook page last year. A 21-year-old kid up in the Midlands caught it by 2 weeks, still growing mo for us. Benny, who's in the audience, has had testicular cancer twice and beaten it, which is great. And so many stories. Charlie Borman, who's a mate of mine, he caught testicular cancer by his wife noticed that the dog's testicle was swollen, took it to the vet, and believe it or not, the dog had testicular cancer. And when Charlie came back from riding and doing the long way around, she sort of said, your testicle's kind of swollen as well, you should probably go and get that checked. It's like the dog's. So he goes and checks it out. And sure enough, he's got testicular cancer. Gets it cut out, he's all good now. He rushed into the decision to get the prosthetic nut. Benny doesn't have any prosthetic nuts. He's made his into a purse bag, I believe. But he had it sewn to his scrotum, and because he rides for a living now, if he ever hits a jump too hard or hits something too tight, it kind of feels like it's tearing. So he tells us his hilarious story about not going through the prosthetic. No one's going to see it anyway, other than your wife or your girlfriend or someone you pick up, so who cares by that stage? And then he flicks the mic with it and makes a noise. So he's a good ambassador, funny guy. I could tell you 1,000 stories, but I'm not going to bore you with those tonight. We'll say it's just those conversations, and it's him having that conversation. It's the guys growing mows here and having that conversation while they're doing it. More than one man dies every hour in this country of prostate cancer, which is inherently wrong. I'm not going to steal Adam's thunder and go into all the programs and stuff we're doing. I'll let him do that. So I'm going to leave you on a note of showing you our growth and our history, because it's better done in pictures. Trav does it really well in pictures, and cool music. So enjoy.
Okay, thanks, JC. So that's our history captured there, and it's sort of impressive growth. As I was transitioning out of the military, I did an MBA at Melbourne Business School, and I can honestly say a lot of the frameworks and a lot of the things that I learned during that time have certainly come and been applied at Movember within the organisation. So what I wanted to do now is just dive into some of those elements that we believe makes Movember the success that it has been over the course of the last 10 years. What we'll do at the end of this is also open it up for questions. And so when I do ask for questions, such that there's no stunning silence, we've got some giveaways and prizes for the first few conversations to get it going. So when we look at Movember, like any organisation, we really try to understand as best we can what motivates people to do Movember. And we check that every year, so we don't go from year to year assuming what we think motivates people. It comes from intimate knowledge of being with the guys, doing the campaign, and truly understanding that. And so what we've understood, and this has held pretty true over the last few years, is the number one reason that the guys grow and the women support Movember is because it's fun. That's the number one reason guys do it, which is fun, because all of us men secretly want to know what we look like with a moustache. The second motivator is because you get to do it as part of a team. And what we've built around Movember is a lot of team dynamics. The majority of people participate as a team, and the most sisters, the girls that do Movember, a lot of them end up being team captains, and then they recruit the guys in their life to join their team. And we do have a lot of gamification throughout our technology around leaderboards and who's raised the most amount of money, and that competition flows through not only within a team but across teams, across countries, and globally. And then the third reason people participate in Movember is because it's validated and underpinned by the cause that we serve. So as JC pointed out, Movember's always been holistically about men's health. And our tagline is changing the face of men's health. And our vision is to have an everlasting impact on the face of men's health. So it's men's health holistically. And then what we chose to do was fund, from a funding point of view, initially focus on the two male-only cancers, being prostate and testicular cancer. We're now the number one funder globally of prostate cancer research and support programs. And then the third cause that we chose to fund is mental health. And we often get asked, well, why did you start all this? Was it because your dad had prostate cancer? And touch wood, and thankfully he didn't. But as JC alluded to, he did have an awesome moustache back in the 70s and 80s. And so that was more the inspiration for us. But sadly, the four founders, we were touched by a couple of mates who committed suicide toward the end of high school and the couple of years after that. And when we started to get into this, it was really interesting that on average, men die 5 to 6 years younger than women. And that holds true in most first world Western countries, certainly here, Australia, US, Canada, Ireland. And there's absolutely no biological reason for that. And one of the main reasons for it is suicide and young men committing suicide. And obviously mental health challenges affect men and women, but we are really, really bad at not talking about it, really bad at not even understanding that we have a mental health challenge. We don't seek help, and unfortunately too many men are seeking very, very tragic ways out of that. So we became a cause that we're very focused on. And so just to put that into perspective, so imagine tomorrow morning if there were 12 men washed up on the shores of the Thames. Imagine that would be national but also global news that there's 4 men, young men, washed up. But imagine if that happened on Thursday, another 12 guys, and then on Friday, another 12 guys. And that's how many men a day commit suicide in this country. No one knows that. No one even talks about it. So we're taking on this challenge now, and so much of this is about the conversation. Because you have conversations about it, you start to remove stigmas. But this becomes really interesting when we come back to these 3 motivators and how we communicate, how we project our brand becomes so important. We can't lead with the cause, and we never have. And I think that's in part why prostate cancer organisations have never had any traction before Movember. Because normally the way they market a cause, and a lot of charities do this, is fear-based. So the dialogue would typically go, 1 in 8 men in the UK will get prostate cancer in their lifetime, therefore you should do Movember, we'll raise funds and awareness and will ultimately cure this disease. That's normally how they market and position the brand. We've never used fear-based tactics, never will. We'll never use statistics like that. You'll see in a moment, but our campaign this year is called Gen Mo, so it's playing off of Gen X and Gen Y. It's about Generation Moustache, Generation Movember, and it's about inspiring a positive protest. So we use very inspirational things. Last year it was called Movember and Sons, so it was about getting dialogue going between your father and son, and that challenge. And the cause becomes tertiary from a marketing point of view. But it becomes very interesting in how we communicate throughout the year, because we do, because of our vision and why we exist, we have a need, of course, to be communicating the cause and getting guys engaged in their health. So we call this our circles of trust. So what we've come to learn is that the primary reason people fundraise and give is because they trust, in our case, Movember and the Movember Foundation. And the most important circle of trust that we have is with the Mo Bros and Mo Sisters, the fundraisers. And until someone makes a donation to the fundraiser, we have no relationship with that donor. So there's another circle of trust that exists out there between the Mo Bros and Mo Sisters and their friends, our family and colleagues who inherently trust them. And then out to the left, we have another circle that relates to the organisations that we partner with, and the researchers and institutions that we fund, and ultimately the men that we serve that are going through the prostate cancer or testicular cancer journey, or battling some mental health challenges. And what we do at Movember, we call it topping up the trust bucket. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we top up the trust bucket, not just now as we lead into the campaign, but throughout the year. And we look at every way possible to actually do that. And we are trying to bring a new level of transparency around our organisation, and social media is demanding that. We're very proud of our cost ratios, which run globally at 8%. So 8% is used for fundraising and administration costs. Best practice globally is between 15 and 25%. We're very, very proud of that. We communicate that. And then what we spend a lot of time on now is reporting back on the impact of the programs. So it's great to say that 92% of the funds we raise go to programs. And so what? What programs are we funding? What's actually the impact? Are we actually moving the dial here? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So this diagram is very important for us, and it's really just mapping your value chain and understanding who's involved in this and what motivates them, and preserving and maintaining these circles of trust. So I've got two slides here, and it just touches on, having done this now for 10 years, what are the 10 things that I've learned through this journey. The first one, and I guess many of you potentially are in a transitional phase as you finish studying here and maybe further your career within an organisation or start something or move to another organisation. It is a throwaway line, but do something you love. Because we spend so much time at work now, and we're tied to it with all these devices that are 24/7. And if you truly do something that you love, the next point comes into play, because if you truly love what you do, you'll be passionate about it and you'll persist. And JC touched on a couple of moments. There's, you map the growth trajectory, and it's like a hypothetical, growth chart is what we've achieved. But there's been many bumps along the way, and it's only if you are truly passionate about something, that you'll persist through that, because relates to the next point. We all have great ideas, and we all have great ideas over a few beers, but often they don't go anywhere, and you leave them there. And I know what I know to be true from our journey is that if you are passionate about something and you get some great people around you, you can create a wonderful organisation. In our case, go on to create a global movement. And trust me, that when we started Movember and we were talking with parents and friends about getting men to grow moustaches, and we were quitting our jobs to do that, everyone just looked at us and laughed. And when you think about it, getting men to grow moustaches, we often joke that we're moustache farmers, and our harvest month is the month of November. It's actually a ridiculous concept when you think about it. So if we can make an organisation, a global organisation that's doing £90 million a year by men growing moustaches, whatever crazy idea you guys are conjuring up is absolutely achievable. The next one is partners. What we realised early on was partnerships were absolutely vital to us. Initially it was to give us credibility by partnering with established prostate cancer foundations. And this is one of the big learners over time is who you partner with. And we have one of our statements at Movember is what we say no to defines us more than what we say yes to. And that's particularly true with partners. And through this rapid growth and transition, we get weird and wonderful organisations, some of the top 500 companies coming to us with different concepts and stuff like that. We've held true to that. Sorry. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Who you partner with will define you, particularly in the early stages as you're establishing your organisation, your brand, you're partnering with bigger brands, they'll help define it. And we certainly had, I might be able to go back. But if we look at those circles of trust, last year, it was exactly this time last year, so I'm located in the US and I oversee the global organisation but work closely with the American campaign. So in the US we partner with the Prostate Cancer Foundation who do excellent research programs at a national level, and we also partner with Livestrong, who pretty quickly changed their name about this time last year from the Lance Armstrong Foundation. And we partnered with them not because of Lance, but because they do wonderful programs to support men and their families going through the cancer journey. But it was really interesting, that circle of trust between ourselves and our community in the US was damaged last year. And for Livestrong, it was decimated overnight because the trust that so many people had in that organisation was destroyed because of Lance's fame was built off cheating and drugs, and that organisation was built off the back of that. And so many people, sadly, have walked away from that organisation, and it flowed through to us. So the point is, your partners become intrinsically linked to you, and there'll be good times and there'll be bad times. What's so important is up front, making sure you do the right amount of diligence before you get into bed with someone. The next point, naivety. Naivety is actually a good thing. And when we started Movember, none of us had done really anything charitable. Maybe we'd made a donation. We had no clue about the charitable sector. And that was a good thing because we came at it from such a different point of view. We're all military and entrepreneurial, small business and brand and creative and sales guys. So we came at this from a marketing point of view. And I often think that if my role was the marketing director of, say, Prostate Cancer UK here, and the CEO said to me, right, I want you to create a campaign that puts prostate cancer on the map nationally and gets men of all ages involved. If that was my starting point and my role was marketing director in that organisation, I can guarantee there's no way known I would have said, let's get men to grow moustaches. And so when you think about that and, how do you apply that, more generally now, I think when you're faced with a challenge within an organisation or a new initiative, get people from outside of the organisation and outside of your industry to come in and take a look at it. And for us internally, we've got about 105 employees now globally. I think one of them is from the charitable sector. As a rule, we don't employ people from the charitable sector because we want people to come to our organisation with different ways of thinking that are business savvy. And we never use the term not-for-profit at Movember. We're all about profit. The only thing that's different is where the profit goes. So we run the organisation as a business. And that's why our cost ratios are so low and our profit is so large, 92%. And we do that because then we can fund more programs. So that attitude came initially from being naive around the way charitable organisations should operate. I think I've been logged out of this, have I? Sorry. There we go. So the next one is around brand and brand relevance, and I've talked about that we don't have a global brand manager. For us, every employee is a brand ambassador and a brand manager. And particularly now with social media, you see your brand out there, and they're the sort of the eyes and ears of our organisation is every single employee. And for us, we talk a lot about brand management, and it's very interesting within our organisation because we give the brand over to the community. We give them our logos and our assets and our name and say, hey, use the name Movember and all the assets to go out and fundraise and create conversations, which is really interesting from a brand management point of view, and it's fundamental to our success. So when you think about it, last year we had 1.1 million Mo Bros and Mo Sisters. They were our salespeople. And for the guys, they became walking, talking billboards for the 30 days. And it becomes very, very hard, if not impossible, to actually manage a brand on that sort of scale. And for us, it's just about being inspirational and having great assets that the guys can take versus people creating their own bits and pieces. The next one is at every touch point, we focus on this, and I sort of think about, what do I focus on now as a CEO? And certainly there's the normal stuff, there's the people and leadership and the strategic vision, but particularly this time of year, it's every single touch point. What's it like when someone calls the support office here in London? What's it like when we send an email with a tough question? What replies do you get? And so I actually spend a couple of weeks doing that, firing off emails to see what sort of responses we get back. At our events, we had one last night. We want to create a remarkable experience, and that's an experience such that you will walk away from it, whether it's an email reply from us, a phone call attending our event, and you'll tell your friends and family about it and go, hey, last night was epic, or whatever it was, have you heard about Movember? Because at our heart, we are a grassroots organisation. We rely on word of mouth, but we need to facilitate that. Next one is around focus, and that's been a really, really big challenge for us, launching in 21 countries literally over the last 3-4 years, and growing a global organisation. And staying focused is particularly hard when you're going through that sort of growth. And for us, another tagline we have at Movember, and everyone knows this, is that our sole purpose is to get real men growing real moustaches and having real conversations about men's health. And that's our sole purpose. That's what we do at Movember, and that's what everything is focused on. Next one is culture. And it's interesting, when we started, there were 4 guys. You've got an inherent culture there. And as we scaled to sort of 20 or 30 people, we're all involved with recruiting them. But then we got to about 40 or 50 people, and it became really different. Suddenly, we weren't interviewing everyone. We use Yammer as an internal sort of social tool now, and you look at people there, and I don't know their names, and I don't necessarily know their roles. And it's a really interesting transition from knowing everyone intimately in the organisation. So what I spend a lot of my time on now is thinking about the culture, thinking about our value set that we hold dear to our heart, and making sure that everything that we do is aligned to our values so that we maintain our culture. Because we fundamentally believe that if we stay aligned to our values, the majority of the other stuff will just flow. And for us, it's all about getting the right people, we call it the Movember train, getting the right people on the Movember train in the first place, and we spend an inordinate amount of time through that process, in the right seat, aligned, and then equipped. And then we go through the training process, and then we empower them to do their job. And the last one I've talked about is inspiring the community to become your ambassadors, or inspiring your customer base to become your ambassadors. And more, word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool. It's also the most detrimental tool if you get it wrong as well. And now references through Facebook for a restaurant or whatever it is becomes so much more powerful than traditional ways of marketing. Okay, we've got one more slide in the video, then we're questions. So we talk a lot about this at Movember, from successful to significant. And I think on reflection, it happened at a personal level and also an organisational level. And I think for us at a personal level, when we started Movember, we're all in our sort of 30s, early 30s. And we'd all been successful in our careers, whatever that was defined by. But we reached a point in our lives where we wanted to do something significant, and it wasn't a conscious decision, it just happened. And for us, and I firmly believe being significant is about doing stuff for people less fortunate than you. And it is the most powerful and amazing experience. And I think that shift personally from focusing on being successful to being significant is an important one. And even within Movember, it was about 3 years ago, we were successful in that we were launching more countries, we were getting more people to participate, we were raising more money, and that was all great, and we all gravitate to those hard and fast numbers. But then we stepped back and thought, hang on, are we actually having a significant impact here? What are all the programs that we're funding, and is that moving the dial? About 4 years ago, we did an audit of the research that we were funding, and at that stage it was 6 countries. And just from a lay perspective, and this is where naivety again comes into play, is that we asked the researchers in Sydney, do you know the guys in London and Seattle and Boston and Montreal and Dublin that you're all funded by us to start with, but you're fundamentally researching the same thing. And they didn't even know each other existed, let alone collaborate. And then we started to look into the cancer research world. And at our level, for organisations like us, we fund the very basic exploratory type of research that's not commercial at the early stages. And we were just shocked that this cancer research world is built on competition and basically zero collaboration. You get notoriety by getting a breakthrough, being written up in a journal, and that gets you more grants. They don't ever share what doesn't work. So we thought, how do we disrupt this? And so what we do now is we take 10% of what's raised in each country, and that goes into a global fund. We have 8 of the best scientific minds in the world come together, lock them in a room for 2 days, and say, what are the key priorities from a research point of view that would best benefit from collaboration? And we've now got 5 programs in play. One of the biggest challenges with prostate cancer is the screening test we have at the moment is not great at all. We need a better screening test. So our first project was focused on that. We've brought together now 150 researchers from around the world that are collaborating, and we fund them to collaborate. They're researching exceptionally complex stuff, but the way they were doing it was terrible. And we firmly believe, and now we're actually seeing, that through collaboration, you can actually accelerate outcomes. So a requirement for us is that you share everything. You share what, importantly, doesn't work. And through that, you get that group genius effect that, someone in London is researching something and then they share that didn't work. Okay, the guys in Boston can iterate off that and go down a slightly different path or a totally different path. So just play a short video on the GAP program, and then we'll come back for questions.
Movember's vision is to have an everlasting impact on men's health. To do this, we needed a new way of working to solve the key challenges. In an unprecedented international effort, we devised the Movember Global Action Plan, or GAP. This unique initiative brings together global teams of the brightest prostate and testicular cancer researchers, collaborating towards a common goal in solving the key challenges faced by patients. This meeting of the minds accelerates research by unlocking a new level of knowledge sharing and global collaboration. Movember funded research, working together to beat prostate and testicular cancer, the Movember Global Action Plan.
In the first global project, we're focusing on creating better tests for prostate cancer. Tests that more accurately distinguish between low-risk and aggressive forms of the disease.
To do this, we will be examining biomarkers, specifically blood, urine, and tissue tests. Biomarkers are biological indicators that can measure the severity of disease.
The ultimate goal is for every man diagnosed with prostate cancer to receive a tailored treatment plan that best suits their specific cancer.
Surgery, radiation, or other treatments will only be performed when aggressive prostate cancer is detected, reducing side effects such as incontinence and sexual dysfunction in men with low-risk disease, and thereby improving a man's quality of life.
Movember's Global Action Plan. researching biomarkers, better testing, tailored treatment, improving the lives of men diagnosed with prostate cancer. Movember, one of the world's largest funders in prostate and testicular cancer research, bringing together the smartest minds from across the globe.
We're working differently. We're collaborating on a global scale. We're accelerating outcomes for men.
We are changing the face of research by breaking down barriers.
No borders, no boundaries, no limits to beat prostate and testicular cancer.
Movember's global action plan, having an everlasting impact on men's health.
We'll open it up to questions. Yeah, good. All right, yeah, I think you're...
What's been your biggest constraint as you expand from country to country?
I think it would be resourcing. Was one of the biggest constraints. As I mentioned, we're very focused on our cost ratios. So at the moment, JC, we're expanding into mainland Europe, and at the moment we're managing that remotely from here. So we've got one guy managing 3 countries at the moment. When that gets scale, we'll put in what we call a lone wolf, so it'll be a local in-country that manages it. So yeah, one of the biggest limitations for us has been resources, and we've never overextended ourselves. We've gone small and built it over time.
Do you always?
No, don't worry.
Okay. Do you always need to go into a country with a partner, for example, like a partner organization, or do you kind of go and then figure it out along the way?
Not always. It's probably the preferred model that we'll go in with. What we do in some countries, though, is that all the funds raised will go to our global action plan initially. Some countries you can do that from a legislation point of view, regulatory point of view. In some countries you can't. You've got to partner with someone and have the money stay there. But it's an interesting trade-off because so if you'd say, all right, if we had £92 million in a global fund, how would you best invest that? Would be very different to what we actually do now. But you're sort of dealing with public perception around the funds that are raised in the UK stay in the UK. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will be best used, because there might be, well, there is fantastic research going on in Brazil, and we're not funding research down there. So, but you're sort of managing these perceptions around donations and fundraising, and people wanting the money to stay local.
And when we don't have a charity, like we've got a load of countries right now in Europe, we don't have a foundation because we don't need to have one. It's simpler to go into that marketplace without one, because starting that fresh relationship with a men's health partner, especially if they're a lot older, so there's a lot of institutions that are 85, 90 years old over there, they're very clunky, they don't think how we think, and it's much better for us because we've got a programs office which Paul Volanti runs for us. If we can go project specific, so what we're looking at doing over there as a test case is, okay, what's the best project we could do in that market right now? And we don't care who's got it, who's the smartest people in the room to do it. And if you're stuck with a particular partner, it's hard to get that money out to go across to that. So,
you've had an exponential growth in terms of the amount you raise. So what's been that kind of equivalent return on impact? Has it all been so, because cancer research is something almost as much as you can throw at it. Right. So has there been some sort of scale in terms of what you've set out in terms of implementation? What's been the return?
It's a very good question. I mean, for us now, we have people in the programs department are focused on measuring impact. And what we did this year, and it's publicly available on our website, we produced a report card for every single program that we've funded since 2004, and we've funded nearly 500 programs. So every single program that we've funded around the world has a public report card. So and the impact, how we're moving the dial, varies from project to project. But for us, we're focused in generally speaking in 4 different categories: awareness and education. So we assess that. What's the impact of the conversation? How many conversations are happening? And what are the changes in behaviour that result from that? So a big part of our campaign this year is around preventative health measures. And for us each year, having the one key call to action, it's like the key call to action this year is know your family medical history. So we can we can ask the guys how many people truly had that conversation and truly know that. So it's just one example, but it's a very interesting area that we're highly focused on now is measuring impact. Because you're right, research may take 5 to 15 years to translate into a new drug or a new treatment option, which is an incredibly long time. And we're partnering with some organisations that are working to actually reduce that amount of time. So we'll go right up the back.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for doing this for the past 10 years. I'm sure that there are literally thousands of people who have gotten in touch with you to say that you helped, or that you felt that you saved their life. Thanks very much. From a marketing point of view, I don't shave very often.
It's a pretty healthy beard too.
So I did it last year with the company I was at, and this year the firm I'm at, which is bigger, and we're going to be able to get thousands of people, and that's great. But none of my friends outside of work do it, and they all give the same reason, that they either don't want to shave their beard, or that they look stupid for the first 2 or 3 weeks.
You need better friends.
But I mean, surely, it's kind of written everywhere. It's even on this postcard, that everyone has to be shaven from day one. And I even wrote an email last year saying, surely from a marketing point of view, the visibility you could get from having people start from day one, because from day one you get people who say they're doing Movember, and people give them funny looks, and I'm sure you are. But nothing comes up for another 4 weeks. So, surely you want to promote the fact that, because I hate to tell you, I'm going to shave everything except the moustache. Grow a Poirot thing that grows around here, because I know that I wouldn't be able to do that if I just shave.
So shaving completely off is kind of the point, because you've got 30 days. So you shave, if you've got a beard and you just shave a mowing like you're going to do, it's just you're one of the hipster dudes walking around with a moustache right now. So you're not creating conversation, you're not creating awareness. They just think you've got a well-established groom, handsomely looking moustache. But you can't go into schools or things like that. But when you shave cleanly, and think about it, because you've got to shave cleanly off, and the only thing that you can grow is the facial hair above your lip. So it's actually that first 10 days that creates the biggest conversation, because you are telling everyone, from the guy you're buying your tube ticket off, to family events, to friends, to work, hey look, I haven't missed a bit, this is for Movember. It's for men's health, it's prostate cancer, did you know more than one man dies every hour, this is what I'm doing, and it's for a good cause. So it actually creates the conversation, and it's your ribbon. So you've got 30 days to grow the best kick-ass moustache you can. And the best ones for us are what we like to call lane mow. So you can't actually see it. So they're out there going, I'm growing moustache in Movember. This is like 3 weeks old. It's there. Can you see it? Justin Bieber's doing it. It looks shit. Like he's out there doing it. My daughter's like, Justin Bieber's doing it. It's like, who's Justin Bieber? I know now. But yeah, but it's rubbish. But who cares? It creates that conversation. And that's what it's for. It's not to look cool. We don't look cool right now.
I'm pretty sure I can grow it.
Yeah. You can, and there's the Moustache Handlebar Club, and they're the craziest dudes I've ever met. Ron and Steve who run it. So if you want to get into that, it gets a bit freaky at that end.
So we'll go to the guy with an amazing moustache.
Thank you. Based on your experience, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs for building partnerships when they're very early in the startup? Because with you had brand awareness, although the prostate cancer guys rejected you, but then you had a lot of cash coming in through the concept, it was good. Mm-hmm. So not every startup may be working towards the charity side of things, or something where moustache is a cool thing and you're doing for a good cause. So when you don't have a brand awareness, based on your experience, what sort of advice would you suggest?
Yeah, and you got to remember, when we started out, we had zero brand awareness, we had zero money. So we were in that very interesting startup phase. And I think it just comes back to sort of mapping out the value proposition and going, well, why would this brand partner with you guys as a startup? And just mapping that out, and then it just comes into selling it in. And they need to believe in you and your organisation. And we often talk about this, whether it's JC was in boat building and media, and I was working at Vodafone before we did Movember. Now we're in Movember. it all comes down to relationships at the end of the day. And if you have a good relationship with someone that you want to partner with, that just goes so far. But it does take so long. This is sort of comes back to that, the importance of being passionate about what you're doing, because you have to persist. And we got rejected time and time again from, it was the easiest sell in the world. It's like, hey, we want to partner with you and give you money. They're like rejecting us at that, but we persisted, and we still ended up partnering with those organisations. So it's it's sort of an indirect answer, but I think it's it comes down to relationships and persistence, and just mapping out a really good value proposition for you and for the partner. We'll go here, yeah.
Thanks, Adam and JC. So the growth that you've had has been amazing over the last few years, right? So 2 questions. First of all is, did you ever imagine that you actually get to this stage, this big? And the second thing is, growth eventually does take off at some stage. What sort of things linger in your mind about how to sustain that growth going forward?
Yeah. Well, to your first point, we certainly didn't have visions that this would become a global movement. And I think it wasn't by design, but the 4 of us that co-founded Movember all had different personalities, and JC's like the ultimate optimist. This is going to be the biggest campaign in Australia. It's like, bullshit, JC. Like, you're talking a big game, but actually that worked really well in the group, because we had JC going, no, this can be. And it's like, yeah, I think it can be, but he's going, no, it will be. And it actually became that. So, and then when we got that traction in Australia, then we launched in New Zealand as a trial market before we launched in the bigger markets. And that was hugely successful year 1. And then we started to believe that this could truly become a global movement. But having said that, in New Zealand, we went there first year, raised $1 million, so a population of 3.5 million people. Then we learned a lot from that. Then we launched in the US, Canada, and the UK in the same year. And we did some basic maths around population and stuff like that. We said, in the US, if we raise $1 million in New Zealand, we can raise $2 million in the US. We'll raise $2 million in Canada and $2 million here, or £1 million here. And that year was 2007.
I raised 1.1 in the UK.
But yeah, so I was over in the US, and it was the most humbling experience, because in the US and Canada we raised $400,000 in our first year, and we thought we could raise $2 million would be a walk in the park. So it was the first real setback for us, like in this, just going at it like this. It's like, what happened? And what happened was, I was there trying to create a grassroots marketing campaign, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. Like, didn't really have a network. So it just took so much longer than we actually expected. What was your second question?
Like, growth does take off at some stage.
Right.
What sort of things?
Yeah, that's what I focus a lot on now, outside of the campaigns per se, is this is clearly built on a fashion trend, and fashion trends come and go. So how do we preserve the essence of what we got, and make sure that there's longevity in this organisation? So we're looking at things now. One of the programs I'm really passionate about this year that we're launching is called Move. So the first 4 letters of Movember are Move. There's all this research out now around how unhealthy our sedentary lifestyles are. If you're sitting for more than 6 hours a day, which the majority of us probably are, it's as bad as smoking. So sitting is the new smoking. So we've got a whole Move initiative this year, and what we're encouraging people to do in the community is host a Move event to highlight the importance of this, whether it's a spin class, a run, a walk, or a bike ride. And then what we'll do over the coming years is add more sort of traditional, like fun runs and things like that into the campaign. We've got our own merchandise range this year. So, we're a brand, and people thankfully want to wear our brand. So we've got a basic line of merchandise this year that's going to add a new revenue stream into it. So we're always looking at, well, how can we create other ways for people to engage in the campaign? We absolutely understand if Mobro's done Movember 3 times and hit up the same crew, he's going to go, I've done my bit for Movember in this cause, and that's absolutely fine. But we still want to give them ways that they can stay connected and engaged in the cause.
And there's 1,000 ways to do it. I mean, I love food, I do. And so I went on a food journey the last 3 seasons, and we put together Cook Like a Man, Cook from the Land, because we got to go and forage, and whatever we caught, killed, we got to eat with chefs. And then we did Bring It On Home, so we got chefs back into the house. And then this year, Macmillan's bought it off us just for UK and Ireland rights, they want to give us a 10-book deal. They gave us £100,000 straight up, which was one of the biggest book deals you'll ever get in this country or any other. For a book so small, they're backing 55,000 copies. But the media were already getting off that. Like we just did a Sunday session with Gizzy Erskine, got to cook, host a dinner party for us, which was awesome. She's hot. And we're going to be on the Sunday Times. So, but we've got live market kitchen stuff going on. We got so much press out of it.
You can start to see the yin and yang of it.
But that's going to be huge for us. That's going to be worth millions in a couple of years. And we're doing it right with the right chefs and getting it done. I like music as well, so we're doing a big piece in the music space in the next. You'll see in the next couple of seasons. You'll see us at festivals with the big guys doing different stuff with musicians and crazy spaces, which will make us, again, another good revenue stream for us. But it's a fun revenue stream. It's easy. Glasgow just sold out in 76 minutes. If we can add, say, 15, and we know the guys who own Live Nation, add £15 a ticket for nothing, it might sell out in 87 minutes. And we've just made £15 off that and then give something back at Glasgow. So get some artists involved. So there's always, Movember's so great because it's a moustache, it's men's health. We can skin this cat any way we want because Mobros are out there, from chefs to musicians to entrepreneurs to stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
Thanks also for the talk. I actually didn't know much about Movember, so I underwent my own kind of period of education here, so I'll definitely do my best. Start clean shaven without cutting corners like that guy. Although I appreciate his creativity. Kind of two-part thing. One is I see the yin and yang and why there's only 2 instead of 4 of you here, otherwise you would take over the room with the energy. So having said that, from your own past experiences, in terms of 5-6 businesses and military or other jobs, what is the biggest learnings that you've taken from your past jobs or company startups into this? And then also, what do you each contribute to make the business work? Because, you know, I also have a company, if you put 4 guys on marketing, it doesn't work. If you start to separate and one guy takes charge of international expansion, one is a legal guy, one is a creative guy, and one is pumping energy 24/7, then maybe it can work. So how do you guys make it work together in terms of division of tasks, and what is key that you really brought into the business?
Well, I think we both love doing different things. So Adam's a ninja when it comes to policy, comes to doing this, loves being the CEO role, loves being the front man, and he's just one of the best CEOs I've had to work with, and I've worked with some big CEOs around the world, so he's developed into that. He's a good leader. I wouldn't want that job for any money. It's just not my thing. I've been CEOs, I've had my own companies, but not like this. And it's just that's just not my thing. Where I like black ops and work out the back and have fun and really put passion behind Movember. And I still run 15 countries this side of the world, and Movember's across 21 different countries. But there's so much to do in it, and I think we work really well together. And we've worked well together for 10 years. We used to fight like cats and dogs at the start. Absolutely hated each other for about 6 months.
I think it was because we didn't know the division of responsibilities, because there were 4 of us. One of them was my brother, JC, and another good mate, and it was like we all wanted to do everything. It's like, no, all right, one of the best networkers I've ever come across. You do that. I'll focus on the finances and the strategy stuff. And I think for me, the greatest thing sort of I think I've learned and sort of underscored the importance of is leadership. Obviously, you get a great training in the military in leadership, and it's one of the, and even the MBA program that I did, there was a leadership course, but it was a course. So I think leadership and truly understanding what it means to be a leader and refining your skills as a leader is the most important thing within the organisation. For me, it's about creating that vision, making sure it's absolutely crystal clear. Like we do stupid vision boards. Like, this is what we want the organisation to look like in 3 years' time. Everyone buys into that, and then you get great people around you, and you inspire them to believe in that. And I've done it a number of times with the vision board. Everyone's going, no, this is bullshit. But it is interesting that you map out what you think your patch of the organisation is going to look like in 3 years' time, and actually draw it or whatever you want to do, and it becomes very tangible then.
And as you lead that innovation, how much of that comes internally among your own workings, and how much do you look outside? Because I would argue you guys are a pretty big company. I call it a business rather than a charity, because that's what you guys want to be seen as. So do you look at other companies for that innovation, and do you look at the social entrepreneurial side, like a company like Tom's Shoes, which is equally fantastic, albeit in a different profit stream?
Yeah.
Tom's is a big partner of ours. We've been with Tom's for 4 seasons. We do our Movember shoe with Tom. So Blake's great. It's a very different model. He's a profit model. It's 1 for 1. We're not, so it's a different sort of side. But we are definitely a business, and we look at ourselves as the business.
We absolutely benchmark us. So we've got organisations that we aspire to be like in various parts of the organisation. We'll have what we consider the aspirational organisations that we want to be like. And again, it goes back to my point earlier around not recruiting people from the charitable space. I think there's one charity that we look up to and want to be more like. The other organisations that we benchmark ourselves have got nothing to do with charity. So, but yeah, we're always challenging ourselves in that stuff.
Sorry, guys, I'm just going to say we'll be able to take one last question, unfortunately, but then we'll let you all
We're
guys all out for a drink.
We're around anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I've worked for charity world for about 13 years, so don't worry, I'm not after a job. I'd love to know what charity is that you look up to.
So would I.
Sorry?
So would I. I'm going to ask him.
Over the last decade, you guys have been enormously disruptive, whether it be using gamification that was completely forbidden in charity fundraising, or whether it was not using fear. I mean, it's a known fact in charities that fear sells and happy stories is rubbish for fundraising, and you guys have turned that around. But I'm really curious, because you were saying earlier about the focus that you have, or one of the constraints is your focus on your cost ratios. And your cost ratio is so low compared with all other fundraising organisations. That's an old school measure, and there's a lot of work going out, sort of Dan Pallotta and uncharitable and all that stuff. Why is it you're sticking to that old school way of thinking when you've disrupted so much else?
Because we run it like a business. And I believe, without taking a cross shot at other charities, they're run by people who have been in business, and now you generally find a CEO of a charity is a retired business guy or whatever. They stack staff. There's so much middle management and stuff going on with charities when you look at it, when you actually sit and start talking to them. There's so many people doing these weird jobs. We've just got it down to home, and we've also run, one campaign a year, and then we've got a big programs team. So for us, for me, it's running it like a business.
I mean, it's a really interesting point, because you could go, right, in mainland Europe, let's accelerate that growth and truly invest in our cost ratios will blow out for a couple of years, but it might blow out to 12 or 15%.
And it grows a lot more, right?
Potentially, yeah, and then that just hasn't factored. It's just not part of sort of our DNA and how we started. But I do get what you're saying, and what we've focused on equally now is the impact that we're having and trying to better measure that. And you would know this from the charitable sector. It is extremely hard to measure impact at a population level and a global level when you're doing stuff like research and support programs and even awareness and education. It's exceptionally hard. And so people do go back to, all right, your cost ratios are hard and fast, therefore we can, in the US does it, there's Charity Navigator and all these things that give you star ratings around them. People do hang on to that. But no, it's just inherent in who we are, how we built the organisation, and we still, we're super proud of that. Again, we don't overly communicate that, but when people look at our organisation and ask those questions, they're stunned. And the charity that we do look up to is Charity Water. I think they do, out in New York, they do a very great job around showcasing impact. Theirs is very easy because they raise funds and dig wells. So it is easy. They've got a GPS tracker on the well. You can zoom in on Google Earth. You can see it, and then they know how much water it's pumping, and therefore how many people in that community are impacted. So theirs is easy, and they do a very good job at actually communicating that. It's very, very hard when you're funding research. It's hard to make a researcher in the lab look sexy. Like it's hard to communicate that, but that's our challenge. So we've got one more question.
So yeah, we'll wrap up now, but we have a drinks reception on the lower ground floor. So if you guys want to stick around for a couple of beers, that'd be great.
Do you want to see something fun?
Oh yeah.
You want to hang out for we haven't got the long one either, we've got the short one, so it's like 30 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
About what we're doing this year.
So this will give you an idea of our marketing campaign this year.
Sign up at Movember.com.